Eminent Domain, Chapter 10. Joe had done extensive research into eminent domain in preparation for the meeting with Alex's father. Although it was not his fight per se, it was important to Alex. Therefore, in Alex's memory, Joe wanted to do everything within his power to make this happen. His research had found very little that directly impacted what Alex wanted to get done. He did feel there were limited possibilities that they could pursue to get it done. He needed Alex's father to even pursue any avenue at all. Using eminent domain in the way Alex wanted to attempt might bring a groundswell of support even from enemies of baseball, not because they love baseball, but instead because they fear what the success of what they were trying would mean to them in the future. When Joe arrived, he was escorted to the den as before to wait for Alex's father. Alex's father arrived a few minutes later. "Afternoon, Joe," he said. "Afternoon, sir," Joe replied. "I have considered a lot of different angles to accomplish what my son had in mind, and frankly I don't see how it would be allowed under eminent domain," he began. "I had my lawyer look at it, not using baseball but other businesses instead, and it all comes back to the same. There is no precedent for what Alex wanted to do. As your lawyer looked at the case in Shiloh, West Virginia, a steel town with one main industry employing almost everyone, Johnson Steel versus the city of Shiloh. In that somewhat narrow decision that the Supreme Court ruled on 6-3 in favor of the city of Shiloh. Namely, the court ruled that the city of Shiloh could force the sale of Johnson Steel to the city of Shiloh based on the fact that Johnson Steel wanted to ever close its doors or move. The city of Shiloh contended that it could operate the company at a profit and provide more jobs for the community. The court decided that keeping the company there up and running was in the public interest and therefore could be taken under the Public Use Clause, Joe explained. In Bergman versus Parker, the unanimous court observed the concepts of the public welfare is broad and inclusive. The values it represents are spiritual as well as physical, aesthetic as well as monetary. It is within the power of the legislature to determine that a community should be beautiful as well as healthy, spacious as well as clean, well balanced as well as carefully patrolled. For public use, then, it may be well that public interest or public welfare is a more correct phrase, Joe added. I see you have done a little research on the matter, and perhaps my staff has not been quite so diligent, Alex's father stated. The public use requirement is coterminous with the scope of a sovereign police power, the court concluded. Joe continued. In several cases, the court has held that the judiciary has very limited power to restrain the state from exercising its rights under eminent domain. The only question is when will a state or local government be brave enough to move forward and take this step? Do you realize that even those who might hate baseball would not be happy with the idea of the government taking it over? Taking the property of a private company, forcing them to sell, even at a fair price, might be seen as too much big government, Alex's father asked. If they put up with the local or federal government coming in and taking their homes, they will accept this as well. If you recall, there was a huge cry when the government took over GM. Certain people called it socialism or state capitalism. They could not decide which was worse, but they got over it. However, we have a unique situation with baseball. Every time people bring up the fact that it's being taken over, we'll bring up baseball antitrust exemption, which in part protects the owners while exempting the government from having to protect the employees, namely the players. Don't get me wrong, there is no love lost for the players, but Americans find something patently wrong with a monopoly. Baseball is a monopoly. More importantly is how the exemption was justified. The court in effect declared that baseball is not a business. It said baseball is a game, a form or entertainment, and therefore not subject to antitrust law, which is dumb on its face since every other professional sport is treated as a business and is subject to the law. We won't be taking over businesses. We will make the owners sell their monopoly, the ownership of a game. The country is used to the government controlling monopolies. It can be sold as better benefits for the players and more funds to build a stronger community. Thus, we make allies of those who don't like baseball owners and those who want a better community for their children, asking them if it would not be better if the millions in profits going to the owners would not be better spent on the community, Joe explained. Let me have my people look into it. This time I will tell them I am moving forward and need their input on how to get it done based on, in part, on the information you've given me this evening. I want want to thank you for being such a good friend to my son Alex, Alex's father said as he extended his hand, a signal the meeting was over. He was an even greater friend to me, sir, Joe said. Shaking his hand, Joe headed for the door, wondering if he should ask if they would be meeting again, or if his part in the matter was concluded, which would suit Joe just fine, no matter. He knew how to get in touch with him if he needed more input from him.